Well, good morning, everybody. Here we are again. It's another weekend in the fall. Officially, we can call it fall. We hit the summer solstice already. I'm sorry, the fall solstice, autumn. Autumn. The leaves up north here are changing. It is going to be a beautiful and wonderful day. I hope whoever's listening can get some time to be outside today. I know here in Minnesota, it is going to be, at least where I'm at, a high of 73. Such a perfect temperature. I love the fall. This is my favorite time of year. Um, just saying. So, got a lot of good information today. I'm looking forward to covering that. The I should probably do my introductions. I am Dr. Jeff Evenson. I'm a board certified doctor of holistic health. I am not a medical doctor. I do not practice medicine. I don't pretend to practice medicine. I don't treat, cure, or diagnose. I simply help people get their health back. I consider holistic health real health care. It is not sick care. We're going to talk about that more in detail today. Last week I talked about chronic health conditions. I talked about the services I offer, breaking out and explaining what functional nutrition is. I talked about holistic lifestyle coaching so people understand what that is, and then how I tie it all together using quantum nutrition testing. And it turned out to be a pretty good show, I think. Um, so it's a lot of fun. And so since I have a lot of information, let's settle in here and get after it. Let me turn on the comments section so I can see where people are tuning in. If you happen to be tuning in and can respond in the comments or the live chat, please do so. Let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see that. So let's get after it. Everywhere you look, I thought that looked funny to me. I had last week's show notes up. Isn't that funny? Guess I was supposed to talk about that again. Chronic health conditions. It's a constant thing, chronic health conditions. Um, and what's interesting is, and I used to do this too, we keep doing the same thing. We keep going back to the doctor, back to the doctor, back to the doctor. And all they do is give you prescription after prescription after prescription. Here, try this one. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, here's another one to try. Oh, here, take this one. It'll help alleviate the symptoms that you're feeling from the first one that you're taking. It's a stupid game. It's a merry-go-round, and it would be really nice to get people to step off of that merry-go-round. It was hard for me, and so I understand where people are coming from. Years ago, when I stepped off the medical merry-go-round, because I got tired of doing the same thing over and over, and we all know what is the definition of insanity: doing the same thing over and over. It's time to step off of that medical merry-go-round, take control, and take control back from the medical system of your health. We all too often we give our complete health control over to the medical system, and they don't honor that. They don't respect that. Now, I know I'm grouping everybody, I'm stereotyping everybody into that. I know that there are good medical doctors out there. I get that. But there's a lot of bad ones too. And the system doesn't allow, in my mind, doesn't allow them to work the way they need to work with people. Holistic practitioners, we can work with people and get down to the root cause of what's going on. So this today's episode, I talked about the services that I do as a holistic practitioner last week. As I said, this week I want to dive into the supplementation that I use, because when I'm working with supplements, I'm not putting people on a supplement program. Okay, this isn't about being on a supplement program. It's about working. I use supplements as a tool when I put people on a natural health improvement program. Okay. There's a difference. It's not about taking supplements. I do functional nutrition, as I explained last week. I do holistic lifestyle coaching, and I tie it together with quantum nutrition testing. Without the quantum nutrition testing, that specific tool and technique helps me get very specific with the person that I'm working on in front of me. Okay. So let's really dig into this because before I even talk about standard process or energetics or Cellcore, the other supplement companies that I use, we've got to answer the question, why supplements in the first place? Why am I using supplements to help people get their health back? Most people don't even ask that question. Okay. They just assume health is about managing symptoms because that's what we've been taught. You've got a problem, you take a pill, end of story. But here's the deal, medications and supplements aren't even playing the same game. So when you look at medications, let's focus on those for a minute. I call that the fast fix illusion. Medications are designed for one thing, control. They control numbers on a lab test. They control symptoms that make you uncomfortable. They control chemistry in the body. So when you have high blood pressure, control it. High cholesterol, control it. Sleep issues, control it. Is your stomach burning? Control it. And when you control something, instead of asking why, you often create new problems. And you've probably seen it. One medication leads to another. Blood pressure meds cause fatigue. So now you're on an energy booster. That booster spikes your anxiety, so now you're on an anti-anxiety pill. And pretty soon your pill box looks like a tackle box. Why? Because controlling symptoms does not restore function. It kicks the can down the road. So with supplements, I have a root cause philosophy with them. When they're built on real solutions, supplements, when they're built on real traditions, are the opposite. Okay? They don't try to dominate the body, they work with the body. So let's say your digestion's wrecked, and instead of shutting off stomach acid like a PPI does, that's a proton pump inhibitor, we ask, why isn't your stomach digesting food properly? Then we give the body the enzymes, the probiotics, and herbs that restore function. I know that particular bit very personally because I ended up having surgery on my stomach. I've told the story before. The medications weren't working, the PPIs weren't working, and I didn't know any better at the time. This is before I got into, this is part of the main driver of why I got into holistic. I had the surgery and I was still having trouble after that. So if your energy's gone, we don't just fake it with stimulants. We support the adrenals, nourish the mitochondria, we clear toxins, and we feed the body what it's been missing. Supplements are not about suppressing, they're about rebuilding. So there's a timeline of healing when you're doing a supplement, when you're taking supplements on your natural health improvement program. Here's the hard truth. The natural health improvement program does not happen overnight. The flip side of that is you didn't get sick overnight either. With your chronic health conditions, these things have crept in over time. And each day you might explain them away and say, oh, I'm just getting older, or I'm a mom and I'm chasing my kids around and I'm working and all that kind of stuff. It's all out of balance. Okay. So we've been trained to want that quick fix, pop a pill, feel better in 15 minutes. But that's not healing, okay? That's numbing. And so real healing is more like farming than microwaving. Think about it. When a farmer plants seeds, he doesn't stand there tapping his foot waiting for the corn to pop out of the ground tomorrow. He prepares the soil, plants, waters, weeds, tends the crop, and only in time does the harvest come. Good morning, Darla. That's how root cause healing works. We're rebuilding systems that may have been breaking down for years. You don't just flip a switch. You nourish, support, clear obstacles, and give the body space to recover. And here's the amazing part. When you give the body the right tools, it wants to heal. It knows how. It's designed to. God built it that way. So there's a hidden cost of covering up. Let's be real. Covering up symptoms isn't just ineffective, it's dangerous. You shut down acid with reflux meds, and suddenly you can't absorb minerals. You end up with osteoporosis or a B12 deficiency. You dull pain with NSAIDs, and you tear up your gut lining. Those are non-steroidal, I can't remember that acronym right now. Like Advil and all that. You dull pain with that. You tear up your gut lining, leading to ulcers or leaky gut. You crank serotonin with antidepressants, and your body stops producing its own healthy levels. So every time you silence the body's cry for help, you pay a price. You trade short-term relief for a long-term problem. When supplements, when chosen correctly, they honor the body's signals. They say, we hear you. Let's restore what you need so you don't have to keep crying out. So, personal example, I'll share this, and I wrote this yesterday. So, I'm actually seeing, I saw an herbalist yesterday for my own health, and let me tell you, it was a different experience to sit on the other side and be the patient. Okay. When you work with someone who's rooted in herbal medicine, they're not asking what drugs cover this symptom. They're asking what system is weak, what herbs will nourish it, what's the deeper imbalance here. And sometimes the plan they give you doesn't feel dramatic, it feels very gentle, which is the case for me. It's subtle, but give it weeks, give it months, and suddenly you realize you've restored something in your body that a quick fix pill never could. And that's the power of root-based healing. Okay? So there's a mindset shift. Here's the mindset shift I want you to walk away with from this first segment. Okay? Medications are a sprint. Supplements are a marathon. Medications silence and supplements restore. Medications override. Supplements work with design. Medications can save a life in a crisis, but supplements can give you your life back over the long haul. And if you understand that, then the rest of today's show is going to make sense, because when I talk about standard process or Cellcore or energetics, these are not just brands on a shelf, they're lineages. They're rooted in traditions that respect healing as a process, not a quick cover up. And so this is a good segue where I can jump in and remind people, I don't ever want to come across as anti-medication, because there's a time and a place. A couple of years back when I had pneumonia, I needed medication. I had pneumonia bad. And the antibiotics that I was taking helped put the fire out. And I knew once I got control of the pneumonia, then I could go back into my holistic program and restore my body at that level again. Okay, so sometimes you have to do it, um, but I'm telling you, it's not the end all for your health challenges. You quieted the symptoms. So here's a couple asides on that. You know, the dashboard light. Okay, I like to use this analogy. You ever drive your car and the check engine light comes on? And instead of fixing the engine, you just slap a piece of tape over the light. That's what medications do. They don't fix the problem, they cover the warning. Supplements, when they're used correctly, actually go under the hood and deal with the real issue. And one of the questions that I often get is, why does it take longer to heal the body? Well, people ask, why does natural healing take so long? And my answer is because we're rebuilding, not just patching. So if it took years for your body to break down, don't be surprised if it takes time to build it back up. Healing is a process, but it's one that lasts. And so we get down into the root cause healing of this, and we can help restore the body's systems. Okay, let's check in here with the chat. Lots of people listening in. If you happen to have your chat window open, say hi. Tell me where you're watching from. If you have any comments or questions, you can throw those in the chat as well. I'll do my best to answer them. So now that we've set the stage about why supplementation matters more than just covering up the symptoms, let's talk about one of the most important supplement lines that I use in practice. I've been using this company. I've been in practice over 16 years. I've been using them from the get-go. I know practitioners who've been in practice longer than I have, and they still use. Hey, Brandy, good morning. Brandy's down in Wisconsin. I appreciate the comments. Standard Process has been around for a really long time, and you can only be a company that exists that long if you're good at what you do. So let's talk about them a little bit. One of the most important supplements I use, the supplement companies I use, is Standard Process. Company is called Standard Process. If you've never heard of Standard Process, let me introduce you to a man named Dr. Royal Lee. I would have loved to have met this man in person. He's often called the Einstein of nutrition. Okay. In the 1930s, he looked around at the way America was changing. Processed foods were taking over, white flour, sugar, shelf stable, everything. And he said, if we go down this path, disease will explode. He wasn't wrong. And does that sound familiar? He was right. Look at America today. Obesity, diabetes, autoimmune, cancer. Royal Lee saw that coming 90 years ago. So well, he has a whole food philosophy. Okay. What did he do? He founded Standard Process. That was a company built on this radical idea of food is medicine. Okay. Not synthetic isolated vitamins, not chemical knockoffs of what nature makes, but whole food concentrates, harvested from real soil, grown on their own organic farm in Wisconsin, and processed in a way that preserves the nutrients. Okay, here's the key. A vitamin in nature doesn't exist by itself. Vitamin C, for example, isn't just ascorbic acid, which we often see that on food labels. Ascorbic acid, which they can make in the lab, by the way. In food, it's a complex. It comes from enzymes, cofactors, flavonoids, all the things that make it work in your body. So if you strip it down to ascorbic acid alone, you've got something that looks good on paper but doesn't restore health in real life. Royal Lee called this out early, and that's why standard process formulas are food-based complexes, not just isolated chemicals. There's a connection to Dr. Weston A. Price, another man you've heard me mention before. He was a dentist who traveled the world studying traditional diets. He found that people eating natural, whole, unprocessed foods had almost no cavities, no degenerative disease, no diabetes, no heart disease. But the minute processed foods came in, tooth decay showed up, disease showed up, deformities exploded. And so Doctors Roy Lee and Weston Price, they were contemporaries. They were sounding the same alarm, and together they laid the foundation for what we now call functional nutrition. So, why do I still use standard process today? Because nothing's changed. The problem Dr. Lee warned about is worse than ever. Our soils are depleted, our foods are processed, and our bodies are starving for real nutrition. Standard Process still runs their farm in Wisconsin. They still use their unique low heat vacuum drying process to preserve enzymes and vitamins. They still create supplements that are as close to food as possible. So when I use Standard Process product with a client, I know I'm not just handing them a capsule or a tablet, I'm handing them concentrated food, food their body knows what to do with. So as I reflect on that, I tie it back to my own health for a minute. I told you earlier I saw an herbalist yesterday. Sitting in that office, I realized something. We're not meant to chase synthetic fixes. Okay? We're meant to go back to what the earth produces: herbs, roots, foods, plants. There's real energy in this, in natural ingredients. Your body recognizes that information. If I were to explain it in terms of computer programming, the information, the energy that comes in live food is like the instructions that tells your body how to use that food and how to use it to heal. It's fascinating. And so that's exactly really what Dr. Royal Lee built into Standard Process. He was decades ahead of his time, but he was really just pointing us back to God's design, back to food, back to soil, back to life. So when you hear me talk about Standard Process, don't just think brand, okay? Think movement, think restoration. Think about a company that has stayed true to a vision for almost 100 years. That healing comes from food, not from synthetics. And I'll tell you, if that's the only supplement line you ever used, you'd still be miles ahead of where most people are. Because Standard Process is the pioneer, and it continues to set the standard for what true supplementation looks like. So, few comments here from Brandy Raverty in Wisconsin. She says she loves the Standard Process incorporated line because it works. Whole food is so amazing. And then she says, God designed our bodies to heal with what He gave us in the plants and animals. Yes, I've heard one from one resource, and I can't remember where I heard this from, but it's really animals is food and plants are medicine. And that's an interesting way to look at it. Plants are medicine, animals are food. All right. So we've looked at standard process and the whole food foundation that Dr. Roy Lee built. Now I want to shift gears and talk about another layer of supplementation, and this is derived out of the energetic tradition. Okay. Because healing isn't just physical, it's also energetic and emotional. And so this is where two of my favorite product lines come in: energetics and Marco Pharma. Okay. So energetics, this is they specialize in blending herbology, homeopathy, and flower essences. This is where the traditions that inform their product line come from. Okay. Energetics is a fascinating company because they don't just stick to one philosophy. Their formulas are built like a symphony. No other way to describe that. You've got herbs for the physical body, homeopathics for the energetic pathways, and flower essences to address emotions. So think about that. Okay. Herbs, they're there. They can move the liver, the kidneys, and the lymph. Homeopathics or homeopathy act like a tuning fork, reminding the body of its natural rhythm. And then the flower essences help release stored emotional stress that often underlies physical illness. And so when I reach for an energetics formula, I know I'm supporting not just an organ, but a whole field of function. It's a multidimensional approach, and it's especially powerful for detox and drainage when we're working on that. The other company I like there is called Marco Pharma. This has a European influence. This line, Marco Pharma, has its roots in the German School of Biological Medicine. And in Germany, homeopathy isn't fringe, it's mainstream. In America, homeopathy is fringe. You know, everybody's like, oh, they get a little woo woo on it. It's fringe medicine in Germany. It's integrated into hospitals, pharmacies, and medical training. So Marco Pharma specializes in remedies that support the terrain of the body, that internal environment where health or disease takes root. And their homeopathic and botanical blends are designed to gently clear, restore, and balance. Okay. So where energetics has that American innovation blended with flower essences, Marco Pharma brings that old world precision grounded in decades of European research. Okay. Good morning, Chris. Thanks for joining the show. Now, here's where these lines are important. Okay. As I said, not every health issue is just physical. How many times have you seen someone detox physically, but emotionally they're still weighed down? Or their labs look better, but they're still anxious or depressed? That's because health is layered: physical, emotional, energetic, and spiritual. If you only work on one layer, you're missing the whole picture. And as a holistic practitioner, that's what holistic means: mind, body, and spirit. Energy brings it all together. So, energetics and Marco Pharma give me the tools to support those subtle layers, to open drainage pathways, to clear energetic blockages, and release emotional residue that holds people back from healing. Okay. Some of that emotional residue is created by stress. And we can work on this is kind of a side note. We can work on stress until we're blue in the face and not seemingly getting anywhere with it. And then we're forced to step back and ask the question, why is that stress persisting? Well, the simple fact is you may still be in the stress. You may still be in the situation that is causing the stress. It could be work related, could be relationship related, could be your spouse, um, any number of things. And you have to look at that and decide, okay, what is going on with the stress? How do we make peace with that? The reason I had this surgery on my stomach is I was not handling my stress very well. In my body, whenever I feel stress coming on, I tend to tighten up right here in the gut, in my breadbasket. Okay. And after 20 years in the Navy, working in some of those high stress environments, and I can say what added to that was a failing marriage near the end of my career in the Navy. I would manifest my stress right here, and I wouldn't do anything with it. I would just hold on to it. Okay. And eventually, I joke, I eventually blew a gasket there in my stomach, and that's why we had to go fix it. Now, when I start to feel things tighten up in my midsection, I've learned to take a step back and ask the questions. What am I reacting to? What am I getting stressed about? Why is my body wanting to hold on to this information? Okay. I try to handle the stress as it's happening. I try to process it as it's happening and allow that energy to flow through. And for me, that works. It may be different, of course, for everybody else out there. I'm just telling you what has worked for me. So I'm going to always connect back to the herbalist I saw yesterday. Sometimes the most powerful part isn't even the herb that they recommend. It's the way she helped me see how stress, grief, or emotional weight has imprinted on my body. Okay. And she ran through a list of various herbal remedies. And my body was telling her that's not what I needed. And so she moved into the Bach flower essences. There's 39 flower essences that help with emotional layers. And so I kind of knew that was going to come up. On some days, I think I'm a very complex man. Other days, I don't feel that complex. I might feel stuck, but I've got stuck emotions in my body, and I know they're holding me back. And so I'm willing to look at those. I'm willing to do the work to try to process that through. And just by talking to her, I got some great information I can use in my journey to explore what the stress is that I'm holding on to. Not the stress, what the emotions are that I'm holding on to. Some of them go all the way back to my childhood. Okay. And it was a pretty remarkable session, and she was able to create a remedy for me, and I'm taking 4 drops of this remedy twice a day. It's that simple of a program that I've added to my own natural health improvement. But it takes time, and you have to have a willingness to want to dive into some of the shit that we all have a tendency to carry around. And frankly, I'm tired of carrying that stuff around, and I'm trying to find the truth of who I am in this journey. Because I'm at that point in my life where that's where I want to live. I want to live in truth. I don't want to lie to myself anymore, And I learned about that with the Warrior Way when I did that workshop. Oh, it was last year sometime, but I did a 4-month workshop. And one of the main things that caught me up short was the fact that I was lying to myself, and the Warrior Way taught me that there's a code. Okay. And since I've learned this code, I strive every single day to live by this code. And it simply has two rules. The first rule, and you've heard me say this on other shows, the first rule is tell the truth. And the second rule is stop fucking lying. And when you can apply that code to yourself, you have to be able to apply it to yourself and do it well. You have to be honest with yourself and truthful with yourself. And that will move your energy into a truth-based system. And let's face it, folks, truth is necessary. You have to have truth to unlock the key to your path, your spiritual path with God. If you want a solid, good relationship, you have to use truth to unlock the key to have a strong foundational relationship. Because if you can't be in truth with your partner, what is the point? And it unlocks everything. Truth, truth, truth. Think about that. Sit with that for a while. Journal it if you need to. I'll show you a link if you're interested in that Warrior Way program. I have a link that brings you to a self-guided workshop that you can go through. It's pretty powerful stuff. So supplements like energetics and Marco Pharma, they're built to acknowledge that truth, that healing isn't just biochemical, it's whole being. It really is. So when you see me pull out a bottle of energetics or Marco Pharma, know this, it's not about a pill, it's about tradition. It's about acknowledging the full spectrum of what makes us sick and what makes us whole. Energetics brings in herbology, homeopathy, flower essences. Marco Pharma brings in the wisdom of the European biological medicine. Together, they remind us that health isn't just about the body. It's about the terrain, the energy, the emotions, and the life force that runs through all of it. That's my truth. All right, if you're just joining or jumping on, throw in the chat where you're watching from. If you have any questions, I will try to answer them to the best of my ability as we go through this. So let's, I've talked about some of the tradition. Now there's new companies coming up. There's modern, I call them, it's modern biochemistry meets that ancient wisdom. Okay. So let's shift into two supplement lines that really bridge the gap between ancient wisdom and modern science. And those two companies are supplements I use routinely with my clients. There's Cellcore Biosciences and Systemic Formulas. Okay. Cellcore Biosciences, they're kind of kicking off the detox revolution. It's one of the newer companies on the block, but they've shaken up the entire supplement industry with what they call carbon technology. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means they're using fulvic and humic acids, compounds from the earth, as carriers and binders. These carbon molecules, they're small enough to cross cell membranes. They can deliver nutrients deep inside the cell and at the same time bind toxins to carry them out. That's a game changer. It has been for me in my own health journey, and I've seen it do countless miracles with my clients. Because here's the thing, modern health problems are layered with toxins. Okay? Mold exposures, heavy metals, glyphosate, parasites, Lyme, environmental chemicals, other toxic chemicals. And these aren't just issues that we can cover up. You've got to remove them from your body. And that's where Cellcore shines. Their formulas don't just add nutrition, they open up detox pathways at the cellular level. But notice, even though they're cutting edge, they're still rooted in something ancient. Fulvics and humics. They come straight from the soil. They're as old as the earth itself. It's ancient medicine applied with modern precision. The other company I use, Systemic Formulas, I call them the clinical tradition here. Let me bring them in. This company has been around for decades and was founded on naturopathic and herbal traditions. And their formulas are incredibly detailed, often blends of 10, 20, sometimes 30 ingredients designed to support a system of the body, whether it's the gut, the immune system, the brain, the adrenals. What I love about Systemic is the precision. Their products aren't just random herbs in a capsule, they're crafted like a recipe, balancing herbs, nutrients, and glandulars to give targeted support. So, for example, if I'm supporting someone's mitochondria, I can go straight to a Systemic Formulas product designed for that. If I'm working on rebuilding the gut lining, there's a formula for that too. Systemic Formulas is rooted in the idea that the body is a network and systems working together. And when one fails, others compensate. So their supplements are designed to bring that network back online. And how do I find that right mix of these supplements I'm talking about? Well, you've heard me talk about it before. I wrote a book on it, on quantum nutrition testing. This is how you tie it all together. Quantum nutrition testing is what allows me to identify what energies in these supplements resonate with your body, and I can get very specific on how best to handle your body at the root cause level. Okay, so here's why I use both of these lines in practice, because they represent the full spectrum of things. Cellcore says we've got to clear the modern toxins that are wrecking your health. Systemic Formulas says we've got to rebuild the systems that keep you healthy. And so together they form a 1-2 punch: cleanse and rebuild. Clear the interference, then restore the function. And if you think about it, isn't that exactly what healing always is? Clear what doesn't belong and strengthen what does. So I'll be honest, when I first started looking at Cellcore, I thought, is this too modern, too gimmicky? But then I started using it in my own health journey and in clients, and the results spoke for themselves. Um, I used it. I used it heavily for the toxic challenges that I see with people, whether it's toxic chemicals, heavy metals. Um, but I tell you what, it is hands down among the best tools to use when somebody is dealing with parasites inside their system. One of the best. Okay. The same goes with Systemic Formulas. I've seen clients who couldn't find answers anywhere suddenly turn a corner when we supported their systems in the right way. That's the power of combining wisdom, the ancient and the modern, the soil and the science. Okay? So when I'm reaching for Cellcore or Systemic Formulas, here's what I'm really doing. I'm clearing the junk that's weighing your body down and rebuilding the systems that make you thrive. This is where modern biochemistry meets ancient wisdom. And when you put those together, you've got a powerful pathway to true healing. So take your coffee, take a drink. All right. Let's talk about another line I use that you may not have heard of yet. They're very new. Alimentum Labs. Okay. This is a company that was created by the sciencey, the doctor who created the Systemic Formulas. He's also now moved, he created another company in partnership with Systemic Formulas, but this one goes much deeper than Systemic Formulas. So it's called Alimentum Labs. Okay. Now, this isn't a big legacy company like Standard Process. It's newer, but I'll tell you why I use them. Because they're building products specifically for the health battles that people face today. So we live in a time of chronic stress, hormone dysregulation, mitochondrial burnout, and gut disruption. And Elementum Labs formulates with those realities in mind. Their approach builds functional nutrition, things like adaptogens, cofactors, nutrient blends, with energetic principles that respect the body's communication systems. So it's not just about replacing what's missing, it's about helping the body adapt, restore, and balance in real time. And here's why this excites me. These smaller cutting edge lines aren't stuck in the old model of take a multivitamin and call it good. They're tailoring formulas for the modern human, for people who are juggling stress, exposure to toxins, poor soil nutrition, and the demands of a fast paced lifestyle. And sometimes it's those innovative, smaller companies that give me just the right tool for a specific client case. That's why I keep Elementum in my toolbox, because they're not just making supplements, they're solving today's health challenges. Okay. So, why these supplements over medications? So, let's bring this back. Why do I choose? Let's bring it back to the big question. Why do I choose these supplement lines? Standard Process, Energetics, Marco Pharma, Cellcore, Systemic Formulas, Elementum. I'm sure there's a couple others that I use that I didn't mention. Why do I use those instead of medications? Well, one, I'm not a medical doctor. I can't prescribe. I can't tell you what to do with medications or what not to do with medications. I can sit here and tell you that I believe there's a much better way, and that's what we've been talking about today. And so here's a recap of some of that. Medications manage disease. Okay. Supplements restore health. Medications suppress symptoms. You've all done that. We've all taken a medication to just feel better. If we could just feel good for a day, sometimes that's all we need to keep our momentum going. Medications suppress symptoms. Supplements restore symptoms. Medications override your biology. Supplements honor your design. So now again, don't get me wrong here. I'm not anti-medication. If you're in a car accident, you need trauma care. If you're in the ER with a life-threatening infection, antibiotics may save your life. That's the appropriate use of medicine. But the problem is we've turned medications into a lifestyle. Blood pressure pill for life, cholesterol pill for life, antidepressant for life, acid blocker for life. That's not health care. That's management care. That's sick care. Supplements, when they're rooted in the traditions that we've been talking about today, are about empowering the body to heal. They're about restoring vitality, not just surviving with managed symptoms. And yes, it takes longer. It requires patience. It requires consistency. But ask yourself, do you want to spend the next 20 years juggling prescriptions? Or do you want to invest in rebuilding your health from the ground up? That's why I do what I do. That's why I chose these brands, because they align with my mission not to silence you, but to restore you. It's really that simple. So I want to just make sure my other screen is ready here. Oops. All right. So let's wrap it up here. We're coming up to the end. If you have any questions, as I said, go ahead and pop them into the chat and I'll try to answer them. So every supplement line that I talked about today, whether it's standard process, energetics, Marco Pharma, Cellcore, systemic formulas, Elementum Labs, they may look different, but they share one thing in common. They're rooted in tradition. Some are rooted in food as medicine, some in herbology and naturopathy, some in homeopathy and flower essences, some in modern biochemistry and cellular detox, some in functional nutrition and innovative blends for today's challenges. Together, they form the backbone of my practice. They're the reason I can sit across from someone, muscle test their body with quantum nutrition testing, and design a plan that doesn't just cover symptoms but gets to the root. And here's the bigger point. Supplements alone aren't magic. They're part of a program. They're part of, you're not, as I said earlier, you're not on a supplement program. It's one part of a program. It's a program of lifestyle, nutrition, mindset, and faith. They're tools that, when combined with God's design and the body's intelligence, allow for deep, lasting transformation. And so here's my invitation. If you're tired of the quick fixes, the cover ups, the duct tape on your dashboard light, maybe it's time to experience what happens when you go back to the roots. That's what I did to get my health back. That's what I help countless number of people do, is I journey with them back to the roots and walk along with them and teach them and educate them, sometimes pray with them. But I'm helping feed their body what they need to get the restoration and rebuilding back. And when that happens, I can see the life come back into their face, into their body. And it's really remarkable when I can see that. So you can connect with me at my website, evensonholistic.com. You can join me at whenever I put on webinars. You're welcome, Darla. I appreciate you. But maybe it's time to step off and step into a new experience with your life. Okay. Don't forget, you can. Oh, I'm going to pull up another slide and I'll share that. Let's do that now. Dun, dun, dun. Where are you? You've seen this slide before. Let me add that up here. Now, next weekend, I don't know if I am going to be able to do a show next weekend. Okay. Next weekend, I am going to be here at the Quantum Leap Conference. All right. I am one of the speakers. I found out the other day that I'll be speaking on Saturday afternoon, right after lunch. I'm excited to do that. This is for practitioners, this conference. I'm speaking to, 250 to 300 practitioners, whether they're holistic or medical. It's just a phenomenal tribe to be a part of. The Quantum Leap Conference. If you're a practitioner, there's still time. You can get a ticket. It is October 2nd, 3rd, October 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Okay. I'm traveling on the 2nd to get down there, and I'll be back on the 6th. So I'll be down there next Saturday. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to have time to do a show. What I might do is do a replay of one of my other shows that I've done, um, and just to keep the momentum going. And so, go to the conference. You can scan this QR code right here on the screen with your phone, okay, and that will bring you to the registration for the tickets. Now, if there's any VIP tickets left, I don't know if there are. That's the level I recommend spending the extra money for, because you're going to get access. You'll get direct access to all of the speakers who are going to be on stage. It blows me away that I'm saying that I'm going to be on stage with a lot of these people who have been my mentors and people I've followed over the years. And I've reached a point, I guess, in my career where I can share my story on the stage with these wonderful, wonderful healers and great people. Really looking forward to that. It's a great conference. I can't say enough about it. Let me change the screen here. And then here's the QR codes for the other things, okay? Now, if you're interested in getting on my calendar, please do so. I have time this week yet coming up, okay? I have openings. You can get in as a new patient, new client, scan the code there, or go to my website, evensonholistic.com, and there's a button right in the middle of the page that says begin your journey or start your journey here. And that will bring you to the registration page. Use the health code Health Truth, or use the code Health Truth. It's a promo code, and you get $200 off, and it costs $150. That covers 2 appointments. Okay, the initial assessment visit, and then I take a step back and I have you come back for a report of findings visit. And in the report of findings visit, I'll tell you, here's what I found, here's what my recommendations are, here's how my program works, and what it costs. And you can decide at that time, yep, let's do this, or thanks for the information, Doc Jeff, have a nice day. And then if you're interested, there is the QR code to order my book on Amazon. I encourage you to buy that. Of course, I'm biased, and I think I did an okay job on writing the book, but it'll give you some insight into how holistic healing is connected with quantum nutrition testing. So it's worth a read. I think a quick read, and that will get you going. All right. So that is it for the show, folks. Let me close with this thought here, okay? Healing doesn't come from a bottle, whether it's a prescription or a supplement, okay? Healing comes from alignment with nature, with tradition, and with the God who designed your body to restore itself. And I lost I don't know why there we go. The supplements are simply the tools that honor that design, okay? They're designed to work with your body and leverage what your body needs to get back into balance, into healing. Okay. So with that, I want to close with a quick prayer. We got to make these letters larger so I can read this prayer I wrote down. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the wisdom you have planted in creation, the food, the herbs, the roots, the minerals, and the design of our bodies. Thank you for men like Royal Lee and Weston Price, and for every healer who has sought to honor your design instead of fighting against it. Lord, we ask for discernment to know when to seek urgent help through medicine, but also to recognize the deeper path of restoration you've provided through nature and through patience. Give us endurance to stay the course when healing takes time, and faith to trust the process when results are not instant. Bless each person listening today or in the future. May they be guided to the root cause of their struggles, and may their hearts be strengthened not to lose hope, but to lean on you as the ultimate source of life and healing. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So that's it, folks. Really good information, I think. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you did, throw something in the comments on what you heard today that really resonated, and because it's fun to see how other people might want to have a dialogue with that. So that's all I have for you. I appreciate you. Love you guys. We'll see you later.